Hello, everybody. This is Andrew Hunzicker. Today we have a great episode. This is all maybe our first round two, having someone back for a second visit, and we're going to call this "How to Help Your Cannabis Accounting Clients Navigate Invitable Audits with Summer Wilkinson." Any company in any industry can potentially be subject to an audit, and either IRS or state. But in the cannabis industry, it's not so much a question of if, but when a company will be called on. And as we're going to learn in this show, these states and feds can show up years later. So, you could be looking at a 2016 audit or 2017. Make sure you don't think you're just past something because it's years ago. As accountants, it's common to feel a little overwhelmed about guiding your client through their very first audit. We can't ultimately control the auditor's final decision, but we can prepare our clients as thoroughly as possible to survive the audit, first and foremost by just doing great accounting on the front end. So today we have Summer Wilkinson back with us. She's one of the very earliest Dope CFO student members, CPA also, MSA, and just recently moved to Tennessee and has her own farm out there. Not a cannabis farm, but a normal farm. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. She recently brought one of her clients in Oregon through an audit and is here to talk about the process, what you can expect, and how to prepare your client. So Summer, why don't I turn it over to you for a minute? Tell us more about your background and kind of how you got into the niche and just the latest update.
Okay. Well, I kind of got into accounting as a whole just because I thought that it would be something that I could do and be a mom, so that it was really flexible. If I wanted to work part-time, I could do that. If I wanted to work full-time, big company, small company. So that's kind of how I picked accounting. And I was good at numbers and very, I guess, methodical. I think you need that in accounting. So about, I guess it's probably been about 9 years now, I bought an existing practice and struck out on my own and learned a whole new set of skills as a business owner and someone responsible for running a business and having employees and things like that.
Really, really different skill set. And I talk to everyone on the phone before they join our program now, because I've actually figured that out now. You could have someone with 8 different letters behind their name and degrees, but running your own business is a lot of different soft skills and marketing skills and people skills are just a whole other ball game. So that definitely takes a new sense. And so kind of what are some of the unique skills or traits that you bring to your practice and or unique offerings, and as well as serving just cannabis CBD hemp clients?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we have a fun personality in the office. So at least I think I bring that positive and upbeat, but also very common sense as well. And, when people are dealing with taxes and they get that letter from the IRS and you can see the panic in their eyes, it's just a nice, you just calm them down. I just have the ability to say, it's going to be okay. We're going to work through this, and things like that, and get them through it. So.
And that's a great point of just really giving your client that assurance that you're there, you're going to help them. And I think that is huge in the cannabis space in particular. These people are dealing with so many issues, banking and software and just running their company. And if they have any kind of accounting and tax or HR payroll issues, they really want to be able to, I've got Summer here that I can totally rely on. And we've worked together on clients as well, so I know how great of a job you do. So my push for Summer, if you're out there, definitely give her a call. She does great work. And it's just a huge thing to have that reliance on someone that you can know and trust. Let's jump in and talk about this audit. So you've guided one of your clients through the audit. It's really awesome. So again, as many people I think know, audits are invariably behind on the IRS or state level. They're just so many years behind.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go back to 2015 15, 16, 17, there were barely even any states legal at that time. So obviously there's not a ton of audits other than the ones we're reading about in the court cases and whatnot. And so anytime someone goes through a new one, everyone's like, you'll see on social media, people are like, oh, what's going on? How did it go? What did we actually see happen on the
Right.
ground? And so,
And this
yeah,
one is
tell us
still
all
not
about it.
resolved yet. So, but
Okay.
I am ready to talk about it. It's been passed on to a tax attorney now.
Oh, good. So it's and talk about that too. Talk about the audit, kind of how you, all of kind of what led up to it. And this was even, I know, before you were even involved with the client, for one. But
Right.
how did it go? And then even how did you may even talk about that because about how you really want to have your things in order, because you don't want to go through an audit, then go to a tax attorney, and then who knows how many years of paying attorneys to get this thing resolved.
Right. And yeah, this was an Oregon Department of Revenue audit on a 2015 tax return for a dispensary that in 2015 only had one location. I didn't do the tax return. I had inherited this client. A great client, by the way. I mean,
Yeah.
really nice, and really wants to he really wants to stay compliant. Right. But so in 2015, I guess he was still, scattered and still kind of new. 2015 in Oregon was medical only.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
medical.
then in 2016, they moved to a recreational. So he filed his return late. He filed it in 2017, and we got the audit letter right before the 3-year time was up. So
on the timing, right off the bat, is that kind of a red flag? Was that something that may have gotten him audited, filing late?
It might have. I don't have any proof as to why they chose him or anything, but I do think that Harborside had just come out, the Harborside decision. And so I really think they went back through their system to see who they could get, because I heard through the tax attorney we hired that they were doing a lot of 2015 audits like that.
Oh, okay. And so when they filed it late, and then as you were saying, so client did, and different from many cannabis clients, actually had really good record keeping and all the documents still
They
say
did. They had all the copies of their invoices, their receipts, bank statements. They did have a bank account, bank statements, everything. We were able to provide everything on the document list that the auditor asked for, because that's standard to ask for all that stuff. I mean, it's a pile of paperwork. So, and the auditor had no problem with our documentation. He said it won't open up any other years, because it's all there. Yeah, we're just
so good. And so that's, again, another point for good record keeping, because if they opened up to other years, that would mean, maybe more penalties and fines and interest and all that. And not to mention more work on the attorney side. So that's good. And so even though this was state level, so what were their findings? That they couldn't put anything in inventory under 471?
Yeah. It was essentially the CPA, and Andrew, we have no guidance really or authority other than after the facts tax court cases. And the CPA that did the return, I really don't have a problem with how she did the return, because she allocated things under 471, and for that year, that's how things were being done. We didn't have Harborside. So, and that's what I would have done the return that way. Probably, looking back, not knowing better. So
they disallowed a bunch of those expenses, and did that result in, did they hit them with a higher tax bill and penalties and interest and all of it?
Yes, a higher tax bill, penalties and interest. In the grand scheme of tax bills, it was only about $30,000, which is still a lot of money.
That's not that much for a dispensary, though.
Right.
Yeah.
It could, when you hear about these decisions that are millions of dollars.
Yeah, and like the Alterman's was, I think, $500,000 or what. So that, there weren't accuracy related penalties?
Mm-mm.
So
No,
that's good.
and there wasn't underreporting penalties either. It was just additional tax due, and here's the penalties because it's late now. And what the auditor found, okay, so keep in mind, this is a 2015 audit.
Yeah.
The audit started, I went out there on December 30th, right before New Year's of 2019 or 20, I can't remember now, even when I was out there, I'd have to go back. I mean, it was a while before we even got a finding. It was almost a year before we got a decision on it. Yeah. So, and the auditor spent all day, toured the facility, toured the store, got a complete description of what everybody did, how their process from their intake and getting stuff out on the shelf and everything. And then when it came down to it, he just said, we have Harborside now. And according to Harborside, you can't take any of these allocations, 471 allocations. So
yeah, that's kind of crazy. So then, well, let me ask you this: if it was 30 grand, I'm wondering, do they even? You say a tax attorney appealing? Is there a point where it's like, oh, I may spend more on legal fees, and should I just pay this and let it go? Or they won't spend too much on legal fees?
Well, this taxpayer, I know he has a limit of what he's going to spend in legal fees, but he does want to fight it. We did appeal it. We appealed it ourselves under the facts that, hey, this was done before pre-Harborside. You can't just base your decision. And at that point, Harborside was still being appealed. There hadn't been a decision on the appeal yet. And we said, and you don't have good case law because this is still under appeal, was kind of the argument that I made. And they came back with a whole bunch of other reasons. So, yeah.
So well, hopefully it'll turn out okay. It sounds though the good news is, I mean, I think it turned out good in a lot of fronts. Like they didn't go to other years. It wasn't they didn't get accuracy related penalties. That's been one in several of these cases that they just hit big fines because they can't find even any receipts. They didn't do inventory counts. They didn't do all these different things.
Right. I think another important thing to get from this as well is the director loan. The owner, he funded all this, and he gave the company a loan, and we had documentation that it was a loan.
Yeah.
After 2015, I forget when we got all that together. And kind of we made the documentation retroactive, but they reclassified all of those loan repayments for 2015 as dividends.
Oh, okay. Wow.
The taxpayer. So he also got hit with a bill of about $5,000, $5 or $8, I can't remember.
Okay.
Around that.
And that's a big issue, and we see lots of loans that if it's going to be a loan, you better document it right and make sure it's arm's length and good interest.
Right. Do if it's an open revolving line of credit or whatever, just make sure all that documentation is in order. They will go back and reclass it.
And that leads into this next question. Or if you are an accountant or bookkeeper dealing with cannabis client, what should you know or have in place to prepare once you take over? Is there anything you wish you'd known initially?
Well, since I got into this niche, it's all been a big learning experience. So, and you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes you don't know what you don't know until you come across it. Right.
Yeah.
So, I think I was really happy. Well, I'm not happy you got audited, but I'm happy it was a state audit. It was a little less intimidating than
the IRS coming in.
Right.
And I think the IRS is coming is going to be coming in a big way for our clients.
I think so too.
And so you've said, so definitely staying on top of documentation and just really doing good accounting. We do in our program, build a permanent audit trail every month, do tick marks and tie outs, and make sure numbers flow through forwards and backwards. And so you can, when the auditor shows up, they can say, oh, these people actually did this correctly.
Right. If you're leasing a building from your father-in-law, make sure there's a lease agreement in place.
Yeah.
Make sure those payments start. If those payments can't start on
Yeah,
time, make sure you amend the lease agreement. I mean, it's just,
Yeah, I was gonna say, you see that too, just agreements that are missing or unsigned or
Mhm.
partially signed. So just, that's a huge way we help them, definitely in our program, building a perpetual data room and just all documents, corporate, legal, leases, insurance, make sure it's all tied out together. One last area too, we were talking about real quick. Well, there's potential new tax laws in the new Biden administration. We don't even know what those are yet. Likely tax is going to go up for everybody, cannabis and non-cannabis. What about 471C? That's been kind of a buzzword. I feel like most of the things we've heard, I know we and talked and different cannabis attorneys and whatnot, it looks a little bit doubtful to use that strategy, at least from my end.
I think it's risky. And, when people talk about wanting to save money on taxes, I guess, they can really take it to the extreme, under 471C, that there was the thought out there that you just put everything to cost of goods sold and
Yeah.
you take all your deductions. Well, that's not even correct from an accounting perspective.
Yeah.
So what makes you think that the IRS is going to buy that?
Yeah, I love your back to your common sense comment you made earlier.
Right.
I'm the same way. I like to look at things with the common sense. If it doesn't make common sense, I feel like you're pushing the limits of your luck.
Right. And on a few clients, I have applied kind of a hybrid method of 471C where their revenues are less than 25 million. And I do the allocations.
Yeah.
The 471 allocations on their books and on their tax return. I think we can make a good case for it. Not that, and I always discuss it with the client. I'm like, here's, it's risky. It is risky, but I think it's less risky than just saying everything's cost of goods sold, so we're going to expense everything.
Yeah.
So those are the returns that are going to be picked first for audit. Those that are.
Oh, I know. And
Yeah.
And again, I always say, it goes back to the old home office deduction. If you're going to do a strategy, it might work, but it might also flag you for audit, which can be a nightmare.
Right.
So, and I think a lot of investors in these LLCs really don't want to get audited if it's an LLC to start with. So, buyer beware, be careful. So that's awesome. Let me ask you, just so since you've been around from the very earliest of the program, almost 4 years now, how have you enjoyed the Dope CFO program? Has it helped you build your firm? Have you had a good time in the group? Because you've been here as long as anybody.
I think so. I think I'm an old timer now.
Yeah.
But it's been a good program. There's a lot of good people in the group, a lot of various backgrounds. So if you don't know something, people are really, really good about helping you or sharing an experience, or you might want to think about this way. So that's been real good, the support in the group, the close Facebook group. Your program materials are always being updated. And I like to tell the story that, I think was one of the first students, or maybe the first, and I literally got a Dropbox full of work papers to use. It wasn't on your fancy platform you have now or anything. But those work papers were just as good as the ones people are getting now. So,
and that's what's awesome. Yeah, you've gotten to grow. That's the good news. I tell people, where the people that bought a long time ago, like each year, they paid a little less money than the new person did, but it wasn't as good. It was, it started out with just work papers, and now we've got a marketing system. We've got more work papers. We've got a community. And by the way, you help as well. And everyone, as we've gotten bigger and now there's, 300 CPAs, attorneys, enrolled agents, CFOs, all these skill sets, it amazes me. Like, I don't know, I think I just saw you, and I can't remember yesterday, Tyler, y'all were talking about a very specific tax return question that I don't even know the answer to. So that was awesome. And I find really the people that contribute the most, I think even outside of our program, people that really contribute and take part end up being very successful. So I want to give you a chance to plug exactly. We'll have this in our show notes too, but I want to make sure, where can business owners find you? We have a fair amount of business owners in cannabis. And by the way, Summer can serve all over the US. So tell where can we find you? And then I'll give you a chance to do a wrap up as well.
Okay. Yeah. Well, probably the easiest way is my website, which is www.leafbookcfo.com. I am virtual. I'm sitting in my home office in Little Minor Hill, Tennessee, talking to you. And I also have a partner in San Marcos, Texas, that works out of his home. So
yeah, that's awesome. And by the way, you moved from the big city. We were both in Dallas at one point, accountants, and now you're out on a farm, which is kind of cool, because you're going to be able to talk to a farmer about any kind of issue. And you're growing, is your hobby, you said you like to grow flowers, and your husband grows something different?
Well, my husband wants to do market gardening kind of things, to sell to restaurants, and
like
that's kind of his plan A for when he retires in a few years. So it had always been our plan to move and get some land somewhere, but with COVID just stepped that up.
Okay. Yeah.
A little, we were in Dallas, we weren't near family or anything, and we were bored out of our minds.
Yeah. And you're growing flowers too, right? Which is really
I am. I've started growing some flowers. I'm kind of tinkering around with that because I've always wanted a cut flower garden just for myself. I've always been an avid flower gardener, but I'm kind of looking at taking it onto a bigger scale now, and maybe doing some CSA or something next year. I don't know. I'm just kind of trying to plant things and get seeds started and stuff like that. So,
well, that's awesome. Well, you're pretty darn busy. So tell us, and you just recently, I'll let on a final note, tell us about your recent certification, because that's yet one more thing that you can bring to clients as well.
Right. We just became Profit First certified, and Profit First is a book by Mike Michalowicz, if you've heard of it. And it's really a cash flow management system. So to me, it was just another tool in the toolbox to help business owners build stronger businesses. Cash flow, especially cannabis, cash flow is
really such
a problem. And really, it sounds so basic, but most of it's just caused by overspending. So, so we work with the client, coach them, put them on. We just recently had a coaching session with a client that they wanted to know how much they could spend on their inventory every week. So we said, well, 40% of revenue. Let's, your prior week revenue. Let's just start with that as a base. And they loved it. It worked. They moved. I think they moved down to 38% for the next week. So
that's awesome. And cash flow is so big at any business, really, and cannabis even more so, because you're spending money on everything, not to mention taxes. And so it's tough. So that's really cool. So that is a huge, if you're out there as a business owner, on the cannabis farm, not only is Summer's firm going to help you do the cannabis taxation right, but also manage your cash flow, which is huge as well.
And a ton of other stuff we can help you with. So
yes,
run your business.
The full services. So check out our website. We'll have that in our show notes as well. Thank you so much for being on a second time. After, if the IRS comes back to audit someone, we'll have you back for the hopefully you won't get there too quickly.
I hope not.